warm welcome to our special guest artist this evening, Zabriel Rivers.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I, before I begin my welcome address, I would like to start with a little welcome song called Funga Alafia Ashe Ashe, which in Gullah Geechie means welcome, blessings, amen, amen. And there's a traditional Gullah rhythm that I love to do when I start my show with my audience. If you guys would love to clap along with me and listen out for the Ashe Ashe, blessings, blessings. If you guys catch it by the second or third time, you can come on in with me, okay? So the clap goes like this. Y'all just come on in when you get it. Funga. Ashe, ashe, Funga Lafia, ashe, ashe. With my heart, I welcome you. With my mind, I welcome you. With my heart, I welcome you. Funga Lafia. Funga Lafia. Funga Lafia. Ashe, ashe. Thank you guys so much. Clap for yourselves. Great. I would like to start by thanking Mr. Eric Townell for inviting me for this series, our Connection series, and to the First Universalist Church of Rochester for hosting this event tonight. Throughout my life, I've always believed in this core cultural principle, and that is this: culture is always speaking to you. I've heard that still small voice inside urging me to embrace the history and culture of the Gullah Geechie people. It could be my appreciation for the art of storytelling, or how I blend the sounds of Gullah and classical music. Whatever form those what I call whispers take, it is not a coincidence. And tonight I am welcoming you to a Gullah evening with Zabriel. My name is Zabriel Rivers, and it is my deepest honor to share this evening of culture, music, and storytelling with you. I am a Gullah Geechie operatic countertenor and storyteller, hailing from St. Helena Island, South Carolina. The Gullah people are descendants of West Africans who were enslaved and brought to work the rice, indigo, and Sea Island cotton plantation fields along the southeastern coast of the United States. And that land spans from Jacksonville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida. The Gullah Geechie language is an African Creole that blends English with various West African influences, developed as a way for people from diverse backgrounds to communicate. Its vocabulary and grammar are rooted in both African and European languages. It is the only distinctly African Creole language in the United States and has even influenced traditional Southern speech. Despite centuries of displacement, exploitation, and systemic erasure, Gullah culture endures. Our music, the spirituals, was more than just song. These were lifelines carrying coded messages for escape, whispering hope in times of despair, and connecting people across generations. The first half of tonight's show is a concert entitled The Gullah Praise House, and it honors the sacred spaces my ancestors created to worship freely. These were small, wood-floored, one-room praise houses where they clapped, shouted, and sang, danced the ring shout, and a West African ritual was born in bondage. These gatherings were acts of survival, spirituality, and joy. Ladies and gentlemen, I will begin the concert. Before I start, the first song I like to sing is like a prayer. just the opening prayer called Eternal Life by Olive Duncan. I'll be singing that. And then I have I'm Going for Tell God All Me Troubles, Ride on King Jesus, and River Chant.
Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, where there is despair, where there is darkness, light, where there is sadness, joy. Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love, for it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying that we are born to I'm going for tell God all of me troubles when I get home. I'm going for tell God all of me troubles when I get home. I'm going for tell him all my trials, all my hardships, my self-denials, and I'm going to tell God all of my troubles when I get home. I'm going to tell him the road was rocky when I get home. I'm going to tell him the road was rocky when I get home. And many times I could be falling if I had cannot hinder me. No wind cannot hinder me. Ride on, ride on, ride on, ride on, Jesus. Wind down the river, wind down the river, wind down the river. I'm going home. Set to the river, set to the river, set to the river. Take me home. I want to go where you are going. Please take me with you where you go. No more troubles, no more sorrows, all in the river. Take me home. Wind down the river, wind down the river, wind down the river. Take me home. Set to the river, set to the river, set to the river.
The next portion of the show is storytelling in original Gullah storytelling. And the first story I'm going to tell is a West African story. And again, the Gullah Geechie people are descendants of the Rice Coast in West Africa, which is mainly the country Sierra Leone and countries like Angola. And long ago there lived a man who was very well respected in his village. And he lived there with his 4 sons and his wife, who was pregnant with what would soon be the 5th child. And early one morning, he woke up as he would normally do, and he began to pack his weapons and his provisions to go hunting for food to eat. And in Gullah Geechie, nap up means to eat. So he called for his boys, and he said, "Kumbaya children, take una foot in your hand and come here. We going way down yonder for go hunting for food to name up." And that's what the sons did. They came running down, but the mother stopped him, and she said, "Poor mammy can't do things like addition of that no more. I wanna need the children helping in the rice field." So the father agreed to let the 4 boys stay behind and help their pregnant mother. And they stood in the yard and they watched as the father walked through the garden, past the rice fields, and disappear off into the woods. Well, the 4 boys who stayed behind did everything their mother needed them to do. They dug holes, they helped her in the rice fields, and they helped her prepare supper. Well, when it was time for them to yam up their food, the mother passed each son their bowl, and one of the sons said, "Father ain't kumbaya at all." And we all know kumbaya means come by here. And she said, "Father sure ain't kumbaya at all." But much time hadn't passed, and they didn't think much of it, so they continued to yam up their food, they cleaned up, and they went to bed. Well, the next day, father still hadn't returned, and they did all the chores for the day. They dug holes again, they did more work in the rice fields, and they prepared the next day's supper. And as they were about to yam up their food, another son said, "Father still ain't kumbaya at all." But no one thought anything of it. And they yammed up their food, they cleaned up, and they went to bed. Well, this happened time after time, day after day, until eventually they totally forgot about their father. Well, the big day finally came. The mother gave birth to that baby. You guys want to guess what it was? No. It was a baby boy, their 5th baby boy. And the village, they stepped in and they loved that baby. And that baby grew, it crawled. And then one day he took his first steps. One day he uttered his first words. And his first words were, "Where is una father?" And can you believe that is what prompted the mother to send the 4 old boys to go find their father? And that's what they did. They followed the same path they remember seeing him go. They went through the garden, they walked past through the rice fields, and disappeared off into the woods. Well, it wasn't long before they were completely lost. It had been so much time that had passed, they didn't remember which way their father went. Until the first son confessed a secret. And he looked at his 3 other brothers and he told them, "Look at this in your nose. Una know how to sniff any trail from here to yonder, if you just show them ya." So the brothers were amazed. They wanted to see him do this. And that's what he did. He began to sniff, and they would walk through the woods. He would say, "Father went that way." And they would go through, and he would sniff again, and they would find that trail. And eventually they came upon a clearing in the woods. And in that clearing were a pile of bones and the bag and weapons that they knew belonged to their father. Well, the brothers became very sad because they were too late. Their dad was dead. Until the second brother confessed his secret. And he told his brothers, "Look at this in your hand. Me know how to knit any bone together you scatter around. Watch me and I'll do them ya. And the brother said, well, please do so. So he got on his hands and his knees and he began to attach his father's bones piece by piece, every bone in his right place. And when he was done, he dusted off his hands and there laid his father's skeleton. But when he turned around to check on his other brothers, they were sad because it was just a skeleton laying there. Then the third brother came out and confessed his secret. And he said, me know how to wrap anybody in a bloody skin in a vein. And that's what he did. He began to speak what they call in Gullah Geechie community conjure words. And as he began to speak over his father's skeleton, it began to become wrapped with skin and veins. And eventually his father looked like he was sleeping peacefully. And when he turned around to get his brother's approval, they were still sad because it was just a dead man laying there. Well, the fourth brother came up and said, well, no better time than this to tell you my secret. And he said, me know how to blow the life into any dead body. And the brothers were amazed by this. All four of them had a unique and secret ability that no one knew about. Well, the fourth brother did just what he said he would do. He stood over his father's body and he took a deep breath and he blew into his father's nose and his father woke up. And his father was so happy. He said, thank you, children. Thank you meaning thank you. Una come from way down yonder for come get me. Una took his foot in his hand and do the thing like that day. And he was so proud of his sons. He took them in and he embraced them and they hugged and they began to march back onto the village. Well, when they approached the village, the people there were working and they looked up and they said, oh, I see five of them. So they must have found their father. Well, they all came together and they were embracing and celebrating. And the father looked around in awe at the people in the village. And he raised his hand and everyone got quiet. And he gave them specific instructions. He told the women that in 3 days' time, he wants to throw a party celebrating his return. And then he told the men to go out and kill the fattest cow they could find. And he told them, when they do that, bring him the cow's tail. And that's what they did. They brought him the cow's tail. He stripped it, leaving just a little bit of hair on the end. He washed it, he cured it, and then he began to decorate it with the finest jewels, emeralds, diamonds, anything he could find. And when he was done, it was the most beautiful cowtail switch that looked like it belonged to someone of royalty. And he carried that switch around every day leading to that party. And everyone in the village was in awe and wondering who he might present it to. Well, the night of the party finally came, and all the people in the village were there dancing and singing and having a good time and eating. And as he watched them, he finally stood up and he grabbed that cowtail switch and he raised it up, and the whole party got quiet. And he told them, this is your enemy hand named cowtail switch. And it going to the child who did the most, took his foot in his hand, which means got ready, and brought me from way down yonder. Well, when the four sons heard that, they ran to the front of the party and began to fight. The oldest son said, go on to me because I the one that find the trail. We didn't know where to go till I went to the wood and told y'all where to go. Then the next son said, no, I know it going to me because when we found daddy's body been dead and I put all the skeleton back together, you know how hard that been for do? And the next son said, no, it going to me because I the one wrapped the body in the skin in the vein. And the next son said, no, it going to me because it's still been dead. I the one blow the breath in the body. And they began to fight and push and shove, and it became so chaotic that the father just raised that cowtail switch again, and everyone got quiet. And he told them, I have made my decision on who this cowtail switch shall go to. He decided that the cowtail switch will go to the baby. And it was the baby remembering him, which prompted them to find him in the first place. And he told everyone at that party to leave with this: one is not truly dead until he is forgotten. End of story. Memory, that story is about memory, and it's very important in storytelling and in culture in general, because that's how all of our culture is passed down generation to generation, through memory and storytelling. And this final story that I'm going to share with you all starts with me revealing my own secret. I know how to fly. Now, I can't just do it on cue, or I would have done it by now. So I'll explain to you how it works. Me being a Gullah Geechie, most of us, if we believe, we have the ability to fly, but only in a state of fear. For example, if someone busts through here, or if I get scared good enough, I'm gonna fly right up out of here. And if you can, you might be Gullah too. Many years ago, I think the early 1930s, the United States government funded historians to go out into the Gullah Geechie Nation, which spans from Jacksonville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida. And they went out and they spoke to elders in the community, root workers, sharecroppers, and anyone they could find in the Gullah community, just to find out, different cultural practices and to hear about their ancestors and history. And there was an older man who told a story about West Africans in Sierra Leone who could fly, shapeshift, and walk underwater. It was believed that our ancestors had the ability to do that. And he explained it like this: the tumultuous boat ride from West Africa all the way to the Americas, that slaves were tightly packed. There was sickness and disease rampant in the boats, a lot of death, a lot of shaking and rocking from the water. And it was believed that caused a lot of the Africans to forget their history and forget their super abilities. And they forgot all of that. But not everyone. Some of us remembered upon arriving to the New World. And they would tell their children, and they would tell their children these stories of West Africa. Well, he also shared a story about a slave woman named Soya. And she lived on the largest plantation in South Carolina. She walked around with an air of confidence that came off as arrogance to the overseer. And one day, as she was working in the fields, the rice fields, she had her baby on her back, humming her spirituals and doing her work. And the baby began to cry. And she couldn't get that baby to stop crying. And the overseer came up and said, "Hey, gal, you better shut that baby up, or I'll do it for you." So she explained to him, just give me a moment. And she turned the baby around from her back to her front. And she began to nurse her baby. And he said, "I didn't tell you to stop working. I told you to shut the baby up, or I'll do it." Well, she heard what he said, but she just wanted the baby to be quiet. So she just ignored him and just kept tending to her baby. Well, that upset him. And he brought out his whip and lashed at her. And not only did he hit her baby. And she began to cry. And there was an older man on the plantation named George. And he would always tell her, ever since she was a little girl, about her ancestors and all the things about them flying and shape-shifting and walking underwater. And she believed him. And he came to her and she said, "George, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore." And he said, "If you believe, I've been telling you this since you've been a little girl, if you truly believe, fly. You can do it." And she believed him. And she began to speak the conjure words that she knew activated that inside of her. But when she started to do that, the overseer overheard her and said, "What are y'all talking about? I know y'all not speaking them conjure words." And he started walking up towards them, and he brought out that whip again. He said, "Oh, I'm going to get you, gal." And he said, and George told her, "Now's the time, run." And she believed. And she called out for everyone in the field. If you believe, come on with me now. And she began to run. And some of the people thought she was crazy. They stopped working and looked at her. They was like, girl, what are you doing? Stop. You're going to get us all in trouble. But there were a few of them who believed, and they began to follow her. And as they all began to run, they began to feel their feet lift upon the ground, and it was as if they were walking up a flight of stairs. And they began to keep chanting those words, and eventually they flew off like a big flock of blackbirds off into the sky. And as they were flying, they looked down as they passed over all the rice fields, the cotton plantations, indigo fields, and they did not stop. They kept going on to freedom. And the people who stayed behind, of course, they had a hard time right after that, but things didn't end terribly bad because eventually they were freed from slavery just a little bit later. But one thing they remembered to do was to pass down these stories to their children, who told their children, who told me, and now I am telling you. The people of Africa, the Gullah people of America could fly. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a Gullah evening with Zabriel. Thank you. So at the very end of the program, I wanted to just take a few minutes if anyone wanted to give any input or ask a question. This will be the time that to do that. So, yeah, let's start with you. You're fine. Go ahead. You're next. Yes, you can find some recordings of me singing on YouTube if you just type in Zabriel Rivers, or you can go to my website, zabrielrivers.com, and it'll take you right to YouTube, to my YouTube channel. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My mom was born in 1915. My father was born in 1905 in Aiken County, Aiken, South Carolina.
Wow.
And as I was growing up, they moved as part of the Great Migration North in the, probably must have been around 1930s or so. They moved to New York City. And as I was growing up, I used to hear my mom and dad make reference to Geechie and rice and what have you, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And I was saying to my friend tonight, if I could have Mom back for one more day, I would sure just pick her brain about all of that history. Right. Yeah, so even though I don't have a firm memory of what they were referring to, your program tonight brought back those memories of them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You have any more? We have one here, Eric.
Your voice is incredible, and I would love to just know a little bit more about the path of how you cultivated that gift.
Yeah, so I grew up, believe it or not, growing up in St. Helena Island where I grew up, we still have a lot of the practices, like the praise house. We still do that. It's not as frequent, it's not as much, but my particular church still did it. And I grew up once a week on Friday nights coming to the praise house, and we would sing all the spirituals that we could come up with and sing songs we make up on the spot and songs that we remember our grandparents and great-grandparents singing on the plantations back in the days. And so that was my start. And then I fell in love with classical music later on in life, and that's when I went to undergrad and found out that I was a countertenor. So I just blended the two after that.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Is the countertenor part of the song tradition, or is that just your particular take on it?
Yeah, that's just how I sing.
Okay.
Because I perform opera and classical too, so I just
Okay.
Yeah.
Pass it in. Shall we pass it in?
in South Carolina, we go down a lot, and I've fallen in love with the Gullah people.
Yes, I do.
There's just so much there to learn about. Do you perform down there, or are there places that you recommend for me to go to learn more about
Yes.
the Gullah culture?
Yes, I would definitely advise you to visit Hilton Head Island and St. Helena Island, and you can visit Penn Center, which is the first school for enslaved African children in the United States. And the campus is still there, and there's so many beautiful artifacts and pictures and readings that you can see there when you go. So. And as far as performing, I recently just did a storytelling competition in Woodruff, South Carolina. So they have a good storytelling tradition there in Woodruff, if you ever heard of that city or town. Yeah. Yeah, I placed. I didn't win first place, but I placed. But it was my first time, so I'm proud. Yeah. Is that all for tonight? Oh, we have one more in the back. Eric.
You mentioned finding your singing voice. Was it? I don't know if you went over your storytelling voice, and could you say more about finding your storytelling voice?
Oh, okay. So growing up, I was just so fortunate. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with these names, but if you Google Queen Quet, she's our chiefess in the Gullah community, and I grew up with her. I went to church with her every Sunday. Was very close with her, so I heard a lot of these stories. Anita Prather, I grew up, she came to my school all the time, a very close family friend. So I'm connected with a lot of Gullah Geechie performers and artists that I've been watching since I was a little boy. So that's where the spark of the stories came from. And as I got older, and as I started to put this show together, I wanted to incorporate the stories and the singing. So.
Who are your vocal heroes nowadays? Who do you love to listen to?
As far as countertenors, a fellow countertenor that I love is one based in California named Daryl Taylor. He's an African-American countertenor. He does a lot of spirituals. I love him. And let's see, I love a lot of composers like Hall Johnson, Moses Hogan. I listen to a lot of spirituals. So those two.
I'm curious whether or not you've had the opportunity to go into schools and perform, because I've seen what a transformative effect performances like that can have on kids. And I think it's wonderful for the kids and wonderful for the performers. So I'm just wondering about that.
Yes, I do. I perform a lot in Montgomery, Alabama public schools and in a lot of public schools in South Carolina. And I have a lot of different children's stories, Gullah children's stories that I share with them. I would have brought one, but I knew it wasn't going to be a lot of kids here, so. Yeah.
I'm a kid at heart.
But yeah, in our culture, we have these things called animal stories and trickster animals. We have your regular animals, you have your trickster animals. So I tell a lot of stories about Anansi, which means spider. So I have a lot of Anansi stories and Breer Rabbit stories. So.
We have a vibrant Black storytelling league here in Rochester, and I was wondering if you've been put in touch with them.
I have not. I would be interested if you could.
Yes.
Okay.
And what were you saying about Breer Rabbit, please?
I was just saying that in Gullah culture, one of our characters is Breer Rabbit, who's a trickster animal. And I tell a lot of various stories of Breer Rabbit and all his little mischievous.
Did you ever tell stories about red-headed bloody bones when you were coming up? Or did you hear about red-headed bloody bones?
I don't know. I haven't.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a foodie, and I love different cultural food. We went to Manning, South Carolina, to Gullah Fish. Do you know that that place? Well, we ended up spending the whole afternoon because the women were so wonderful, and we learned so much about, the culture and the different things. What's your favorite fish, or what is your favorite food
dish,
that you
maybe?
love? Yeah.
My favorite Gullah dish is red rice. It's a Gullah rice. It's like rice with tomato sauce and
Yes,
sausages and
yeah,
meat.
we had it, yeah.
And it's very similar to jollof rice that they cook in Nigeria, in Ghana, in West Africa. Just theirs is spicy, and ours is sweet. It has more of a sweet base. So it's
It was
interesting that a
delicious.
lot of our foods and different things are connected to our traditions in West Africa.
Yeah, the grandmother made it there, and she was so proud to
Wow.
share it with us. It was quite a place.
Yes.
But they're only open 3 days a week, so you have to make sure you're in town at the right time to go because of the different things that happen in their village or in their town.
Wow.
So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Pass it on, Andy.
There we are.
My mother collected baskets, and I wanted to ask you about the livelihoods that the Gullah people produce, the livelihood today, what they do, and is there still a coherent community there in, I guess it's Georgia, but you're from Alabama.
South Carolina.
I'm sorry,
You're fine.
South Carolina. All right.
So yes, those traditions are still very strong there. If you attend any cultural festival that they have down in South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, you will find a lot of various sweet baskets and things like that. And those things started way back in slavery time because the Gullah people were specifically brought from Sierra Leone because they were rice cultivationists, the rice coast in West Africa. So when they were brought over to the sea islands, they lived there isolated on various islands. The enslavers couldn't live there with them. They chose not to because of the various diseases that they didn't have immunity to. And the climate there was very similar to the climate in West Africa, so they had a lot of immunity. And a lot of the times, the basket weaving and the rice, those would be different things. The indigo would be ways that they would not only work for the enslaver, but also use it to make their own money on the side. It was like their own little side, job. So, and eventually they would use that to buy the plantations that they were living on back from their enslavers. So that's one of the origins of the sweet baskets that started during that time.
No chance you could tell us the Breer Rabbit story that you told me this morning?
Yeah, I can tell y'all a Breer Rabbit story. All right, so this is the story of how alligators went from having beautiful, smooth skin like marble to being the cracked, ugly, mean old creatures we know them as today. In Gullah tradition, we have our animal stories, and you have your regular animals, and then you have your trickster animals. And Breer Rabbit is probably the most trickiest of them all. One day, he was walking down the swamp when he ran into Breer Gator, and Breer means brother, and that's what people refer to each other as. So he said, "Hey, Breer Gator, how are you doing today?" And Breer Gator said, "Hey, Breer Rabbit, how you doing?" And he said, "I'm doing great, just staying out of trouble." And he said, "Trouble? What's that? Who's that?" And Breer Rabbit said, "Oh, you so silly. You've never met Trouble? Well, how about I introduce you to him?" And he said, "Okay, well, let me go get the family, and we're going to come, and you're going to show us who Trouble is." And he said, yeah, don't rush, because I know you guys are so conceited and full of yourselves. You're so beautiful and smooth. Go home, rest, take your time, get the family dressed, and I will meet you back at the shore tomorrow morning." And that's what Gator did. He went back to the swamp with his family, and he said, "Everyone, we're going to bed early tonight because tomorrow Breer Rabbit is going to take us on land to show us this man named Trouble." So they did that. They went to bed, and the next morning they woke up, and it took them a long time to get dressed because they looked like marble. They're beautiful. So they were fighting over the mirror. "I'm the most beautiful. I'm the most beautiful Gator." And eventually they got themselves together and made their way up on land. And they looked around for Breer Rabbit, but didn't see him. Well, the father gator said, well, he promised he will take us to meet trouble, and I believe him. So let's just start walking towards the woods, and hopefully we'll run into him. He's probably just a little late. And as they walked through the woods, a lot of time had passed, and they began to get tired. The baby gator started crying and getting irritated. So Brother Gator said, I see a field of hay over here in the woods. Let's go over here and let's take a nap. And we'll wake up after lunch, and hopefully we'll bump into Breer Rabbit so we can meet trouble. So they went over and they rested on the hay, and they began to rest. Did you guys know that Breer Rabbit was sitting up in the tree the whole time watching those gators, just laughing, getting a whole kick out of it? See, that was the most fun he probably had in about 3 days. So he got the bright, tricky idea for those gators. He hopped down off that tree. He took his pipe that he was smoking out of, and he gave it 2 taps. And 2 little balls of coal hit that hay, and it began to do a little crackling sound. And that little crackling sound, a sizzle, was what woke up Breer Gator. And he said, y'all wake up. I hear something. And I've never heard this sound before. It must be trouble. So all the gators started to wake up. He said, shh, I don't want y'all to scare him off. And as he looked, he said, oh my God, that's trouble. He's tiny and gray and fluffy. He looks so sweet. And as they began to look, one of the baby gators said, oh, I see red and yellow and a little orange. And the father said, well, everyone, I want you to lay as still as you can so we can just admire it. Well, trouble began to inch closer and closer to those gators. And as it got close, it bit them. And he said, trouble's a mean old creature. We got to get up out of here. So he took all the gators, and they began to run back to the swamp, but trouble was biting them, and they couldn't escape. Well, eventually they made it to the swamp and jumped into the river, and there was a big cloud of smoke that came up. And that is the story of how alligators went from having smooth, beautiful skin to being cracked, old, and ugly. Thank you, guys.
Reception area, that'd be wonderful. Please come back and join us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Zabriel.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Charlie.
Woo.
The trees bloom. Happens every year. Happens every year. The trees bloom like this.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna try to find her. I gotta stick in. It's like an offering, yeah. They look like wonderful offerings.